Hello Internet, my name is Frankie, welcome to the channel, and in today's video we are starting a brand new franchise mode zoo, Primate Isles. So that's right, today we're going to be starting a brand new zoo. If you've been following the channel for a little while now, you will know that Floki Wildlife Park has been getting to quite a sizable point recently, and I've kind of run out of room. Well, at least I've got to a point that I want to get to with that zoo. I have a couple more habitats planned, and for those I need the Africa DLC to come out, and that is going to be coming out at the end of this month for console players, so I'm just waiting until that releases in order to introduce some meerkats in particular, and then we can finally wrap up that zoo. But for now I want to start a new franchise mode zoo. Something that I've been playing about with in my head for a little while is the idea of having a series of islands that mainly focuses on the reproduction and rehabilitation of primates. So we're going to be making some habitats for apes and monkeys and lemurs. All of these animals are going to be in the African tropical biome, and we're going to start by actually creating this island. Now, it is franchise mode, so money is an issue, and it really does kind of rear its head in this build. So yeah, I'm not getting too detailed in terms of actually sculpting this island. I mark out the basic shape of it and then kind of surround it with some water. Not fully, we're going to do all that later. Once we have got a decent cash flow, we will really make this island look nice and proper. Another thing that we're going to have to wait for due to financial restraints is the entrance. I want this island to be accessible by boat. I know that with the European pack you got a kind of yacht sort of thing, which has guest spawners inside, and that's how they get onto your island if that's how you're going to be building something, and that is exactly what I want to do with this. So we are going to have to wait for a while because that costs $150,000. And we do not have that kind of money starting out. You start out with 40,000, and we are really going to need to bring some cash in order to build the entrance that we want to build. So the primary objective of this video is to sculpt out the basic shape of our island and then start with our first habitat, which is going to be a walkthrough habitat for the ring-tailed and black and white ruffed lemur. Now, I have already built one lemur habitat on this channel before, but that was very much a compact habitat, something that was designed to be quite small and just fit in a corner kind of thing. But this one is going to be large and expansive and lovely and rich for our animals. What you can see me doing right now is just playing about with the terrain tools and kind of sculpting some hills and stuff, and it's a really messy process. This isn't actually going to be kept. It was more of just an experiment to see how things would work, because I know that when it comes to building my gorilla habitat, I think it would be really cool to have them kind of in amongst a mountain, because even though they are western lowland gorillas in the game, when I think of gorillas I think of, well, mountain gorillas in particular, so I'm thinking of them on mountains. So that's kind of how I'm going to be building their habitat eventually. Yeah, this island is going to house all of the available primates in the game, and I think initially I did just want to do primates. I really like that idea. However, it's going to be a little bit boring for you guys to watch and a little bit boring for me to build as well, if every habitat is quite similar in terms of what needs to be in there for our animals. So I am going to include every single primate on this island, but I'm also thinking maybe every other animal there will be something smaller that lives in the tropical regions. For example, when I was starting out Floki Wildlife Park, I was dead set on having capybaras. I bought them straight away with the beavers as well. Those were the first two animals I knew that I wanted in that zoo. The beavers did get a habitat, the capybaras never did. So maybe I should make a capybara habitat on this island. Let me know in the comments if you think that'd be a good idea, and maybe suggest some other animals that you think would work quite nicely in amongst the primate isles. The main focus of the other animals, aside from the primates, would be to kind of draw in crowds and raise money for the conservation work that we're going to be doing with our primates. So yeah, go ahead and make some suggestions in the comments down below. Now, the reason that I have picked for this specific video to use black and white ruffed lemurs and the ring-tailed lemur is, upon doing a bit of research for these animals, I found that whilst lemurs are often kept together, they are often mixed species. The red ruffed lemur in particular can get a little bit violent for its territory and stuff. There is a little bit of a risk of confrontation between all these animals with regards to territory, but it seems like the ring-tailed lemur and the black and white ruffed lemur are a lot more docile. They tolerate other species a lot better than the red ruffed lemur. That seems to be a bit of a problem child when I was looking at some of the reports from other zoos. So I've decided to just keep it to these two species of lemur in a shared habitat, and then later on we will build a second smaller habitat for our red lemur as well. What you can see me doing on screen at the moment is creating a small, shallow river that I want to run through the island. This island is going to be broken up by various rivers and streams and stuff because it's just going to make it a lot more interesting. I am going to have our lemur enclosure kind of bridge over this river. Our guests are going to be able to walk inside the habitat on one side of the river, whilst the animal house and most of their enrichment items are going to be on the other riverbed, meaning that the animals will probably stay on that side of the river, which is kind of good. It keeps them away from our guests whilst allowing our guests to feel that they are kind of in this immersive experience as they walk through their habitat, but also there's not really that much of a chance of them interacting with the animals. For the habitat house, I decided I wanted to be built entirely out of the logs from the Africa theme. I'm really excited to get the Africa DLC come to consoles because there's going to be more building pieces that I can really utilise in this specific zoo. But what I'm doing for this habitat house is I'm going to have a pointed area at the front, this kind of gabled off piece that will then have a window that our animals can climb through. That behind that we're going to step back another 4 meters and it will open up into a bit of a wider area that will allow for an area where our staff can go and like sort out all their food and stuff, and also a area to actually keep these animals whilst they aren't out and about, somewhere for them to go indoors and sleep. I'm also having quite varying angles in terms of the gables that we're going to be using to put our roof on, just because it's quite interesting to not just have it be one angle, but instead start off slightly what's the opposite to steep? I can't think of what the word is. But yeah, it's going to increase in how steep it is as the roof gets higher. I think it's just a bit of an interesting thing to do. And whilst you would normally, well, probably use the hay thatched roof kind of thing for this African theme, I'm actually going to go for some vertical wooden tiles just because I think it's going to look a lot nicer. It's going to be a bit more of a clean finish rather than the thatched roof. I've just used a lot of that in Floki Wildlife Park, so I want to kind of go away from it a little bit. And something that I realised whilst I was building this habitat house and the habitat in general was that all of the materials that I've been using so far are renewable sources, such as wood. We can obviously recycle things that have been discarded, or we can replant trees as we build, stuff like that. So I'm kind of liking the idea of this being an eco zoo where everything that we do is built out of like sustainable resources and stuff, and we are using green energy to power the island. I really like that idea and think that I might actually carry that forward and make it a conscious part of my zoo design to make sure that it is eco-friendly and sustainable. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd like to see. Just another little challenge for this zoo, I guess. Something else that I do for this habitat house is I'm going to be adding one of the shop front window frame thingies to the hole in the front of the building where our lemurs can climb through, just for a little bit of decoration. And I'm also going to be using a couple different beams and pillars and stuff to add a bit of structural decoration, because at the moment the front of this building looks very flat. Despite the fact that it's being made up out of round beams and stuff, it is lacking a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to add a few really thick beams and whatnot to break it up a little bit, because not only does it look a bit more structurally sound that way, but it also just looks more interesting. You may notice that I'm not actually doing any interior work at the moment, and that is for a fairly simple reason, and that is because I'm going to be making I wouldn't say extravagant, but it's fairly complicated actual habitat, and I'm going to be moving this habitat house about, experimenting with its position and such. So I don't want to be adding loads of detail to the inside to then have to move it and potentially have all the stuff inside move as well, and it just not be too cohesive. So I thought I would wait and properly flesh out the inside once we have a general habitat that we're quite happy with. It'll be one of the last things that I do. But something that I want to concentrate on this zoo is having proper backstage areas. At the moment, we don't have too many props to kind of go with that theme. I know the conservation pack will help with that massively, because you get stuff like shovels and plant pots and whatnot, and just loads of different stuff that keepers would use around the zoo day to day. But we have no date for that yet for console, so at the moment we're just going to have to do what we can. But like I say, for this zoo I do want to concentrate on creating some kind of interesting backstage. Now the general idea for how I wanted this habitat to look was quite simple. At least in my head it is quite simple. It's an aviary style sort of tunnel like structure, and I am going to be honest, what you're seeing now is like my third attempt. For some reason I made it so complicated and so difficult. I just kept really struggling with it. This build in total was about 4 hours long. Well, actually it was closer to 5 hours. Yeah, I really struggled with it. But what you're seeing now is kind of a final attempt at it. And what I'm doing is I'm using various East Asia planks, because I really like how natural they look, and that feeds into the eco idea that I had. And I'm going to be making a frame out of those. I'm also going to be using door hinges and sinking them into the wood to make them kind of look like nails that are actually holding all of this together. So to get this aviary style tunnel that I want, the basic idea is to make a tall curved piece out of these wood structures that you see right now, and then kind of bridge the gap between two of them using various size netting pieces or mesh pieces, because we don't actually have any proper netting. Then you can copy and paste it along to create one side of the tunnel, duplicate that and have it be opposite, and that will give you the other side of the tunnel. Then it's just a matter of filling in either end, making sure that the habitat in general is kind of airtight and the animals aren't going to escape. There's a lot of back and forth, and there's only so much that I can really say about it. So I'm going to pop this in time lapse and just stop talking and let you watch it for a little bit whilst I'm figuring stuff out. Yeah, you can see there's a lot of back and forth and a few mistakes made, but we do get there eventually. And with the habitat built, it's time to actually get our animals in there. So I'm going to hop back over to Floki Wildlife Park because I know that my black and white ruffed lemurs have just had some babies, and one of them is a gold star rating. So we're going to pinch them and send them over to our own zoo to start the new line of black and white ruffed lemurs over there. I really like this idea of kind of having our animals go between zoos and enriching the gene pool that is being used. You know, like we've got really strong genes here, so let's go and put them over in our other zoo as well. And after having purchased the rest of the animals on the animal market, I can then pop them in our habitat and get our terrain distribution dialed in, make sure that our animals are going to be happy with the ground texture, and then we can start to do some planting. Now, my main idea for this habitat was to have where our guests are be kind of walled off by stones. We're going to have it look quite natural, but it's a barrier. They're not going to be able to cross that river because it's going to be entirely covered with mossy stones. And then after that, the opposite bank of this river is going to be covered in lush greenery. These guys come from tropical jungles and forests and stuff, so we're going to make sure that it is packed with life. It's been quite a while now since I've been able to make a habitat like this, and I'm so grateful to be able to do it. And what you can see me doing now is make sure that all of these beams are non-declinable, because they do escape by climbing those beams. A weird thing happened. I had already done all of this. I'd already filled this entire habitat with plants and stuff. But my game just didn't save, which hasn't happened before. Normally, when I exit to the main menu, the game saves. However, it just didn't, which is very, very strange. But in that playthrough, a whole bunch of the lemurs just climbed up those beams and got out. So what you're seeing me do now is actually the second time that I am placing all the plants and enrichment items and stuff. It was a little bit annoying, but you know, it's the most fun part of the process, so it's not too bad. I'm going to sit back and just let you guys enjoy this time lapse of me placing a bunch of rocks and plants and stuff. And I'll be back in a little bit to talk about the backstage area. For the interior of our habitat house, the first thing that we needed to do was to create a floor, and for that I'm just using some 4x4 concrete pieces. We are then going to make sure that the ground's level underneath so we don't have any grass sticking up through the top or anything, and then we're going to section off the area where our animals are going to be sleeping and where their inside climbing pieces are going to be, so that they're not going to be getting into where the staff are going to be organising their food and enrichment items and stuff. And to do that, we're just going to separate it off by using some of the 4x4 mesh fence pieces. These are excellent building pieces for this kind of thing and for custom barriers, so I would definitely suggest playing about with these if you have the opportunity to do so. Then I'm just going to scatter about a bunch of hay on the floor for sleeping and add a small climbing frame in the middle so that there's still a bit of climbing for them to be doing inside. If they wanted to get out of the rain or something, they still have the opportunity to exercise. I'm also going to be using a bunch of the aquatic lamps in this shelter, just because I think they look really cool. At the entrance to this habitat house, I decided to create a custom door frame using pieces from the Twilight pack. I really like the wood pieces from the Twilight pack, so I'm just going to make a whole door, basically. Something that can appear as if though it's open at all times, that the keepers are going in and out of, because this isn't actually going to be the habitat house door. No, it's not actually going to be the habitat gate. The habitat gate is attached to the mesh pieces that we put inside of the habitat house. I am just using different planks from the Twilight pack. I don't really mind that this door hovers off the floor a little bit, kind of saloon style. I quite like that. I end up putting some hinges in the door, well, where the hinges would be, I guess. And I'm also going to use an anchor point for chain as a door handle. I do initially use a massive one, but then I actually do come across something a lot smaller and a lot more realistic. So we end up going with that. Now inside is where the fun really begins, and we actually make some custom shelving for this area, something that we can then, well, I decided to make it a blueprint because then I can use it in loads of our habitat houses going forwards. It's just a really basic metal shelving unit that we can put different crates and stuff on, just make it look like it is an area that is being used to organise and store different items for our animals. In terms of the other items that are going to be out here, there are going to be different types of baskets and buckets and stuff. They're going to be crates filled with fruit and large pieces of fruit just standing alone on the shelves. There's also going to be some wheelbarrows and piles of logs and stuff that are obviously being used to create climbing frames and things like that. And once we have appropriately filled this area and make it seem like it's a proper living workspace, we are then going to use some decals to apply some cracks to the concrete and some grunge under the most worn and walked areas. This little backstage area is something that I'm really happy with and I really enjoyed making, and I'm looking forward to doing a bunch more in the future. Let me know if there's other things that you'd like to see being included in these backstage areas. Maybe some ventilation systems or something. It's just anything really that I could play about with and try to create. Yeah, I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of this build and then we will get onto the cinematics. But as that will be the end of the video, I will say my goodbyes now to just keep it nice and fluid for you. So thank you so much for having watched this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this appearing in your subscription feed. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.